Guys, I'm gonna be reacting to why you wouldn't survive the US Navy SEAL Hell Week. You wouldn't survive it, but I would survive it. So let's react.
Day 1, 100 hours. Crawl, dirtbags! An instructor tears into your tent, quickly followed by several others. They're all carrying rifles or old M60s and are firing blanks with wild abandon. Some of the instructors toss out a grenade simulator and smoke grenades. The fake grenades still explode with a hell of a bang, and the sudden cacophony of noise is enough to temporarily drive you deaf. You've made it through weeks and weeks of the toughest training on Earth, but what awaits you now is 5 days of absolute hell. If you survive, though, you'll have the privilege of joining the ranks of the single most elite fighting force the planet has ever seen. You were smart and slept in your uniform and boots, so it's only a matter of flipping out of the bunk and landing on the ground before starting to low crawl. Instructors fire off blanks over your head as more flashbangs and smoke grenades go off. It's utter pandemonium, meant to stun and disorient you. But you know war will be worse. It's all a mental game. You simply have to shut out the screaming instructors, the firing of hundreds of blanks all around you, and the bursts of grenade simulators. Just focus and crawl. You crawl 100 meters on asphalt from your tent to the compound, the place you've sweat in harsh PT for months now. On a raised platform stands a senior instructor awaiting for your class of 90 to fall into formation. As your fellow classmates make the grueling crawl, you already see one standing up. That can only mean one thing: he's quitting. He looks dazed and slightly confused. He may have been a little too close to one of the flash grenades when it went off. Oh well, injury and accidents claim as many would-be SEALs as the inability to continue in the brutal training. San Diego is seated right in sunny SoCal, but in the fall the area is prone to rainstorms and temperatures could dip into the 30s at night. Today is no exception, and as the instructors order you to double time it back to the tents, rain starts to fall. Don't worry though, Buttercup, because the last thing the instructors want is for you to be left out all cold in the rain. That's why they had the decency of tearing your sea bag apart and removing all the carefully packed uniforms from the plastic waterproof packaging. Next, you'll be taking it into the ocean for a quick half-hour wash in neck-deep water. You have less than a minute to repack your sea bag and get your ass to the beach. Then it's an icy cold plunge into the Pacific Ocean, so you can fight the waves in tide and neck-deep water. Everything inside your sea bag is going to get soaked in seawater, and that's the point. There'll be no comforts these next 5 days, and even if the uniforms dry off on their own, you'll still have to contend with all the chafing sand and salt they're getting covered in. Though, don't worry, because you'll be real good friends with the ocean this week. You're in the surf for just over half an hour with the instructors watching over you from a 12-foot berm. The entire time they're complaining about how cold it is, despite the fact that they've got warm jackets on and rain ponchos. It's all part of the psych game. They're probing each and every one of you for weakness. With teeth chattering so hard you're legitimately afraid you might chip one or two of them, you briefly think that all you have to do to make the cold and pain end is just quit. Nobody would even blame you for it. But you shove that thought out of your mind and you blank your brain. That's the key to survival here. Don't think about anything except the task set before you. One of the instructors makes an offer. He knows that you and your class have prepped for Hell Week by stashing little snacks around the training area. If one of you gets him a snack, he'll let you out of the water. Initially, nobody says anything. It's true. You've personally hidden at least 2 candy bars in the sand in spots only you know of. Surviving Hell Week isn't just about carefully obeying orders and following rules, it's about breaking them and cheating when you can without getting caught. Because in combat there are no rules, there's only mission success. You expect one of your other classmates to give in to the temptation of giving up their own stash just to spare some time in the water, but it seems everyone's wise enough to know that the extra calories later is worth more than avoiding some discomfort now. After another 20 minutes, you're given the order to get out of the water and return your sea bags to your tents. At least they'll be out of the rain, but you won't be, because you're going for a little boat trip. You and your class are ordered to report to the beach assembled in boat crews with your
Sorry, I have to stop it for a moment because this is intense. There is no way I'm surviving here. 'Cause even by just watching, I'm already thinking of quitting. Yeah, I haven't started, but I want to quit because why?
BS or inflatable boat small. You think you know. You've been rowing out to surf despite waves as tall as 12 feet for weeks now, but the instructor throws a curveball at you. Tonight you'll be doing rock portage. This sends a shiver down your spine, and it's not the cold because you're shivering all the time now as your body fights off hypothermia. This is pure fear. You and your crew drag your boat out onto the surf and climb aboard it, fighting the raging waves. They still manage to flip over several of the small boats, and you think yours might be next, so you grab your paddle as hard as you can. There's a rule here in SEAL training: no loose paddles. You can get tossed out of your boat as much as you want, it's bound to happen, but you don't ever let go of your paddle. You're not just saving Uncle Sam money by not having to replace it, but you're also preventing serious injury to yourself and others by holding on to it. You've seen people get teeth knocked out and faces gashed open by loose paddles. Incredibly, you managed to break past the 10-foot waves and now paddle out into the Pacific Ocean before paddling down to a point directly across from a mess of sharp, jagged rocks. Other boats line up, and then on a signal from the instructors on the shore, you and a second boat begin your approach. The goal is simple: land your team on the rocks. The reality is far from it. The waves are vicious and the boat takes a pounding. As you get to the rocks, a wave picks up half your boat and brings it crashing down. Someone smashes their face right onto a flat rock. They're lucky to avoid one of the jagged ones, while another student who is struggling to get out of the boat gets their foot caught between two rocks as the boat pushes them over. You can hear the sickly snap of an ankle being broken in two, even through the rain and roaring waves. You're lucky, and you only get some mild cuts and bruises as you scramble over the slick rocks. But then you turn back because there's no lifeguards here. Someone has to get your buddy with the broken ankle out of the water before the waves break him to pieces on the rocks. And that someone is you and your boat crew. Working together, you manage to pull them to safety. There's already a medic on scene and waiting, another dropout, but you see the respect in your instructor's eyes. Injury doesn't mean a pause in the training, and it's far from the only one this night. As the final boat crews make the extremely dangerous landing, you're given a moment to rest, literally a moment, before grabbing your boat, putting it over your head, and jogging to a pier. Then it's back in the water for another hour of treading water. Eventually, the instructors order you to inflate your pants by tying off the bottom of the legs so you can use them as flotation devices. That's a small mercy. You get a hot breakfast at 6 a.m. and you're allowed to eat it indoors at the chow facility. You eat everything on your plate and fill yourself with some hot coffee while you have the chance. It's an incredible luxury. And the Navy isn't feeding you well out of the kindness of its heart. It's literally keeping you alive. You're burning so many calories shivering and exercising that without 4 meals a day, you will die. Then it's back into the water for more swimming and paddling. By the time night approaches, you've completed your first full day of Hell Week, and there's 4 more coming. Day 2.
That is just one day. You know, I thought you was about to say, and yes, you've completed 4 days, you have 1 day left. That is just one day. Are you taking the piss? Is there anyone that's gone through this? Please let me just see you write something in the comments, because you are a real G. You are a top G. You are the GOAT. You're anything, man, because that is hard. That is so difficult. Let's see day 2.
Wake with the start to the sound of a screaming instructor. You were dreaming of sleeping comfortably in your cot, but when you come to, you're right back on the beach. Your team was fastest on the latest lap swim, and as a reward, you've got a whole 10 minutes of rest. That's it. Now you've been up for 24 hours, and you've slept less than 20 minutes that entire time, snatching up a minute of shut-eye here or there whenever you could get it. The instructors have a surprise for you today. They decided to give you a break from the ocean and instead order you to grab your IBS and get marching south along the beach. The Mexico border isn't very far from here, and you're wondering where in the world you're headed when you spot the outlet of the Tijuana River. You've been marching for 8 miles through sand with a 300-pound boat on your head before you see it. Welcome to Camp Swampy, also known as the Mud Flats or the Sloughs. This is where the Tijuana River runs along the Mexico border and empties into the Pacific. The river brings with it plenty of churned-up mud, and even worse things, as some of the sewage from the city of Tijuana ends up in that water. This is the perfect playground for SEALs to be, and the instructors are waiting for you with huge grins on their faces. Getting here is a race against the other remaining teams. There's 9 now. Everything you do is a race, and the prize for coming in first is the sweet few minutes of relief you get for waiting for the final teams to make it. Your team got here second, and you get an incredibly luxurious 5 minutes by a roaring fire to warm up and do what your body is screaming for: sleep. Inevitably, the sound of a whistle wakes you right back up. Uncle Sam cares deeply about your self-esteem, which is why he's prepared a mud treatment just for you. At the sound of a second whistle, it's elbows and asses into the mud, and you're ordered to cover yourself in it completely, even shoving it down each other's pants and into your shirts. Hey, don't look so glum. A Beverly Hills spa would charge hundreds of dollars for this treatment, and the U.S. Navy is giving it to you for free out of the kindness of its heart. Never mind, the mud is seeped in random sewage, probably at least partially toxic, and smells like the devil's hole. Stick it in your face and get it into every nook and cranny. All the instructors want to see from you is white eyeballs and teeth. Then it's time for games. Mud races mostly, with random breaks to ensure everyone refreshes their exfoliating mud treatment by covering every single square inch of their bodies in freezing mud all over again. When it comes time to eat, you do your best to eat as little mud as possible, but it's
Oh.
inevitable. Several more students quit. One of them looks physically ill. The instructors wrap them up in warm blankets, give them hot coffee and fresh jelly donuts. Then they make them sit in front of you and eat their donuts and drink their hot coffee. It's yet another mental torture, but you'll shove it out of your thoughts. Day 3. Days blend into each other in Hell Week, especially when your brain is actively
That is not right. You can't just kick someone that is down already, man. Come on. Come on. You can just eat stuff when they're dying for it. Come on. That isn't that. Am I being a softie or what?
hallucinating because it's so sleep deprived. You're still in the mudflats and spend hours playing hide-and-seek games with the instructors and against other teams, darting from bush to bush and rock to rock. You run into several illegal border crossers only to send them off screaming. You don't blame them, you look like a monster, covered head to toe in wet-caked mud. People's bodies are starting to give out on them, and a class full of 20-year-olds is now moving around like they're in their 90s. The instructors give you one break, allowing you to collapse into bleachers built there specifically for SEAL trainees. 50 feet away, just far enough that none of the heat reaches you, is a blazing bonfire. An instructor makes you all a deal. If you can tell him a funny story that makes him laugh, you can go stand by the fire. A trainee gives it a shot, gets rejected. As punishment, he has to go dunk himself in the mud again. You think you've got something about the time your
Oh my
stepdad
God.
walked in on you while you were watching some adult entertainment online. It's a hit, and the instructor roars with laughter as he allows you to stand up and double time it over to the fire. The heat is a godsend, and you revel in the first warmth you've felt in days. You could stand here forever, it seems, and you want nothing more than to roll up on the ground and go right to sleep. The heat is so intense that it causes steam to billow off your uniform. And then, one of the instructors begins shouting, "Student on fire! Fire! Everyone in the water!" It's a big joke to the instructors, but you respond automatically, gritting your teeth as you hit the freezing water. It's back into the wet mud for you as your entire class is ordered to stand neck deep in the water for another hour. Then the instructors tell you all to stick your head down under the water and keep it there for a full 5 seconds. If anyone got up early, everyone would have to do it again. You take a gulp of air and go down, counting 1 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000, 4 1,000, 5 1,000, 6 1,000. You give it an extra second. You don't want to be the reason everyone has to repeat the torturous exercise, but it's all just a mind game. And the instructors call out random students, forcing everyone back under the water. You do this again for who knows how many hours before it's back on the beach and back on the bleachers. Another round of funny stories, another opportunity to stand next to the fire, and inevitably, another shout of "Student on fire, everyone in the water." And it happens all over again. Day 4.
Oh my
It's 2 in
God,
the
that
morning,
is
and
crazy.
you're allowed your first official sleep of Hell Week. You and your team are crammed underneath the overturned IBS, nuts to buns, desperately trying to leech each other's body heat. The guys in the middle are the luckiest since they get the most body warmth. But the Navy doesn't play favorites, and it wants everyone to have a chance at the middle. That's why one member of each boat crew has to get up and run around the perimeter of the camp, shouting out, "It's Hell Week at Camp Swampy, and all is well!" Takes approximately a minute for the run to finish, after which he ducks under the boat and the next person in the front of the human stack gets to go. The process repeats itself over and over again until morning. But if there's a lapse in the running and shouting, the instructors immediately descend upon you, ordering every single boat crew to get their asses back in the water. You manage to snatch a few minutes of sleep across the entire 4 hours from 2 a.m. to sunrise, then it's back up into the mud. A few more mud races, and then finally a chance to clean yourself off with a long swim into the breaking surf. You're almost grateful to be out of the mud, even if the 8 to 10 foot waves do their best to drown you or pound you into the underwater rocks. There's a few more dropouts by the time the swimming is over, some from sheer physical exhaustion and others from even more injuries. The mud made yet another student too sick to continue on, and you hate to think about what crap you've covered yourself in for over a day. There's 3 less boat crews by the time you get to your IBS and put it over your head for the 8 miles back to the compound. Bowel movements are becoming a serious concern at this point, and you've all been fighting them. There's no bathroom breaks in SEAL Hell Week, so you and your buddies do your best to rush into the water to relieve yourselves. However, often accidents happen, and number 2s just come while marching in the boat on the beach while you're sitting next to them, arms locked together, singing songs during the surf torture. What would have absolutely disgusted you a week ago is now nothing more than a minor annoyance, even when the contents of someone else's stomach end up on you. The human body can only function for so long without sleep, and when you refuse to let it get the rest it needs, the brain will snatch sleep when it can. You've fallen over at least 5 times while paddling your boat, going straight into the freezing cold ocean only to wake up with a start and drag yourself back up into the boat. It happens to everyone. Hallucinations are becoming much more frequent too. Most people hallucinate about food or warm fires. Others have full-blown mumbled conversations with themselves. A guy on your boat crew insists he sees a cartoon character rowing your boat with you. Everyone's brains are so starved for sleep that they're projecting dreams straight into reality. After evening chow, it's time for a special treat. The Navy wants to reward all your hard work with some rest and relaxation. So everyone strips completely naked and jumps into the outdoor pool for a game of water polo. It's the most vicious game of water polo you'll ever play in your life because the stakes are high. The winning team gets a brief rest, while the losing team has to stand under the outdoor showers for 5 minutes with the cold water running. This is on top of the freezing cold wind that's picked up. The motivation is high to win, and the race to 5 points is brutal with injuries on all sides. Your team wins the first game but ends up losing the second, so it's off to the showers for you. There's no word to describe the cold you feel under the showers as a blustery wind blows onto you. Your teeth are chattering so hard by now that you're sure you need dental work after this week is over. Day 5. You have no idea what time it is, but you've entered into Day 5, your final day of Hell Week. At some point past midnight, not too long after your freezing stay in the showers, you all pile back into the pool after being ordered to bring only a single IBS with you. This is confusing, as there's still over 30 of you left, and you wonder what fresh hell the instructors have come up with. The game is simple. Everyone needs to get onto the IBS and remain atop it. Failure means doing it all over again. Those who get loaded on first have it worse. Sure, they get to rest briefly as the rest of the class climbs on, and you've learned to revel in seconds of rest. But as more and more people get onto the small boat, the more and more pressure that gets put on them. Eventually, the IBS begins to take on water, and while it won't sink, it'll go down a few inches into the water. This causes the people stuck at the bottom of the human pile to fight to keep their heads above water and breathe, which inevitably ends up with them kicking people off the IBS. In response, the instructors order you to do it all over again, and so it goes for at least 2 hours as you struggle to cram an entire class onto one boat and hold steady for at least a few seconds. To congratulate you on a job well done, the instructors reward you with a low crawl on the asphalt back to the beach and into the surf. The asphalt is torture to low crawl over, especially since you're back in your uniform, which is crusted in sand and salt. The sand and salt tear at your skin as you drag yourself over the pavement 100 meters before you hit the sand. The sand is easier, but it's much colder. Still, you prefer the sand over shredding your skin to ribbons on the hard pavement. Once at the surf, the 30 or so of you remaining lock arms and sit right where the waves break on the beach. They smash into you with tremendous force, and combined with the ever-blowing coastal wind, work to leach every ounce of heat from your bodies. You're on Day 5 though, and you refuse to quit. Together, you sing to keep spirits up, everything from old Baptist hymns to modern pop songs. The instructors, meanwhile, torture you psychologically by presenting you with steaming hot cups of coffee and warm jelly donuts. All you gotta do is quit, and a delicious donut and hot cup of joe and a warm blanket is waiting for you. But none of you do, at least not at first, because the instructors have saved the worst trick for last. Looking at your pathetic selves up and down, one of the instructors spits into the surf and declares you the worst motivated class he's ever personally seen. You're so poorly motivated that he's decided to enact a rare but special provision which allows an instructor to extend Hell Week by as much as 2 days. Your sorry asses have failed to impress him, and he's decided what you need is another 2 days of motivational training. Then he orders you all out of the surf and back onto your boats. The thought of putting that IBS back over your head is torture. The rubber boat rubs against your scalp with every single step and bump, rubbing it raw and even tearing your hair out. If you're in the back and put it onto one of your shoulders, it literally wears the skin off your bones. Then the salt and sand gets into it. It's absolute torture, but you sigh and begin to double time it straight to your boat. You didn't come this far to give up now, even though the news that you'll be doing another 2 days of this hits you like a sledgehammer, wrecking your morale. But when you get to your boat, one of your crew is missing. He's standing on the beach, tears streaming down his face.
Oh
you know what
my
this means,
goodness.
and you don't blame him. He can't bear the thought of another 2 days of this. And while some would call him weak for quitting now, the truth is he's proven he's a lot tougher than most people to make it this far. One less man means a lot more load for you to carry as the 300-pound IBS slams into the top of your head over and over again. You're at the front and too tired to lift it with your arms, so you let it rest on your skull. It's a good way to get a mild concussion, but at this point you're well past your physical limits and simply don't care. It's a race to the next evolution as usual, and against the odds and despite your missing crew member, you managed to get there first this time. You collapse on the ground ready to soak up the few minutes of precious rest, but to your dismay, the other teams were nearly as fast as you. You struggle back onto your feet, but your knees give out under you. One of your classmates grabs you and helps you up. That's probably the biggest part of Hell Week, teamwork. Without it, none of you would make it. An instructor comes strutting up, and you can't imagine what fresh hell he's got in store for you. To your amazement, however, he says the sweetest words you've ever heard. Class, you are secured from Hell Week. There's no cheer. Everyone is too tired, and there's no celebration. Instead, you pick back up your IBS and lug it to the compound to stow it away. After this, you'll clean up a bit, get a medical inspection, and then be allowed to go home for the weekend. You still got weeks and weeks of brutal training ahead, but you've completed the single most challenging event of becoming a Navy SEAL and joining the ranks of the deadliest fighting force humanity has ever produced. Now go check out Navy SEALs vs. Green Berets.
Oh my goodness. What did I just watch? That is the most intense thing I've ever seen, watched, witnessed. And that's not even the real training, it's just the narration. That is crazy. That is crazy. Big respect to those that do this. Huge respect to them. To be honest, I don't know, maybe just 10% of people in this world, 10? 5% of people in this world can do this. 5? Even less than that, probably. 'Cause this is just intense. It's too much. It's torture. It's mental torture, physical torture, every kind of torture. And the fact that they eat in your presence is just taking it to another level. No, I cannot withstand stuff like that. That's crazy. That is crazy. I can't even swim. Thanks for watching, and till see you next time. Peace out.